Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to another Supatease video. And in today's video, I'm going to be bringing you 7 overpowered PvP specs for 10.1.7. These are going to be specializations that are going to be really well suited for going for these end of season rewards because, 10.2 is probably around the corner and we got to start dialing in if we haven't got close to these rewards yet. And we're going to be talking about specs and the compositions that are going to go excellently with these to give you an idea of what you need to be looking to do to succeed in the meta of 10.1.7. And if you want to stay up to date with news related to World of Warcraft, educational, entertaining content, or just keep tabs on the game if you've tapped out at this point to see if it's worth your time in the future, smash that subscribe button. Let's get started here. Number 7 may come as a bit of a surprise, but this specialization is on the rise. I didn't mean for that to rhyme, but apparently now I'm able to rhyme passively. It is the Feral Druid. Now, this specialization has some very interesting compositions that you can play and have some success on, particularly of the Arcane Mage and Holy Priest. So these specializations together bring a lot of crowd control, a lot of single target damage, and a lot of avoidance. You can always opt for the traditional jungle cleave with the Beast Mastery Hunter and Holy Priest, but I would recommend at the moment an Arcane Mage and a Holy Priest if you're looking to pick up this specialization. You do want to be playing the Cyclone talent, mashing out Cyclones, resetting your Feral Frenzy, and focusing heavily on single target damage in this type of composition, but it is doing really well. And the main reason I think for that is that melee cleaves are very dominant and it seems to be able to dismantle them quite easily with how much crowd control it has, and Mistweaver monks are becoming more popular, which is another reason I think that this composition is doing so well. Now moving into the number 6 position is the Destruction Warlock. Now this is just a powerhouse specialization with a lot of damage, a lot of schools of magic, and has a lot of composition options to it at the moment. It's definitely very well versed, has a lot of variety for you to start having some success on. I would, however, recommend that you play with specializations like Arms Warrior and Holy Paladin. I think that this composition has been pretty straightforward in terms of just keep pushing forward, gas down all the way, pedal to the metal, do as much damage as possible, and run the team over with a huge amount of support and healing in the backline from the Holy Paladin. But you can obviously flex for caster compositions if you don't have an Arms Warrior around. These types of compositions would be something like a Frost Mage. And do note that now today, Resto Shamans are buffed, so Resto Shamans are likely looking like a pretty decent substitute, especially when talking about Wizard Cleave matchups and the like, with how much they're buffing Riptide and Healing Stream Totems. So you may want to take into account picking out one of those if you can't find a Holy Paladin or a Resto Druid in LFG with all of the changes coming through. But Destro Warlock is a powerhouse, definitely a specialization that I've seen lots of teams climbing with at the moment and climbing the ranks. So definitely check it out and give it a shot. If you're any of those specializations that could couple up with this, it's a great idea. Coming in at the number 5 position is going to be the Windwalker Monk. Now this, hands down, is one of the strongest melee DPS in the game. It's absolutely running people over. It's super tanky and durable now with the changes that have come through and forward with it. And much like Destruction Warlock, it has a lot of variety in terms of what compositions you can play with. So it's a great spec to pick up if you're jumping into LFG and not really able to get a consistent team, because it's really going to be a Swiss Army knife and just work with pretty much anything. I would, however, recommend picking something up like an Enhancement Shaman and a Holy Paladin. I think this composition provides, again, a huge amount of single target burst. You can just run people down, very Zergy, but you can play with casters. You can play with Warlocks, you can play with Moonkins, you can play with Mages, you can really play with anything. This is a, MacGyver specialization. It can make really anything work, so I would definitely recommend it just for that sake in itself, but it is a little bit more challenging to play and execute than some of the other specializations on this list and the compositions that are available to them, which is why it's coming a little bit lower on the list overall in terms of the 7 most overpowered PvP specializations. Now coming into the number 4 position is going to be a Balanced Druid specialization. Now, Balanced Druid has started to fall off a little bit, but I still think that it has some very powerful and straightforward compositions to start succeeding on the ladder with. Particularly, I would recommend the Elemental Shaman and a Preservation Evoker. This composition does a huge amount of damage, really powerful spell cleave. Just focus on cycloning to peel for your teammates and pump out as much damage as possible, and it's going to be pretty straightforward. And you really can't go wrong with the staple Demon Hunter and Preservation Evoker. I would say Preservation Evoker typically is the best healer for this, this, but Resto Shaman with the buffs to their healing now, if you got a Resto Shaman that's lobbing out some Lava Burst as well and adding some damage, that it could definitely be a decent substitute. But as of this moment, I would be more confident telling you to make sure that you're pairing it with a Preservation Evoker if you're looking to go for this specialization. But those compositions are comps that just focus around doing a lot of damage and are decently durable, although you will need to be careful with your Cyclone utilization. If you're not using it at all, then you're probably not going to have too much success. So Cyclone's going to be the skill determining factor of the specialization and the compositions that it has available to it. But it is still a great specialization if you are looking for your end of season PvP rewards like that Gladiator Drake. Moving into the number 3 positions, we're getting to the top 3. These are like creme de la creme. These are the ones that really will give you the best results. Number 3 is going to be the Subtlety Rogue. RMP, where did it go? Well, it didn't really go anywhere. It's still one of the best compositions in the game. It's only coming in at number 3 because I do think that it requires, a bit of investment to it. You're not just going to be jumping into LFG and immediately having success with it if you've never had any experience with it. But Subtlety Rogue, Fire Mage, and Holy Priest is still really powerful. It's definitely like one of the takeover compositions towards the high end of the ladder. So if you're looking for something for like a long-term investment, or you have some committed teammates that want to look at a composition to play, you really are not going to go wrong with Subtlety Rogue, Fire Mage, Holy Priest. It's a super rewarding composition with setups and burst windows and just monstrous amounts of single target damage, which is going to enable you to deal with pretty much any situation at the moment, and you still have decent longevity. The Holy Priest mana is still in a really good position to be able to extend games past just an opening phase, which RMP is typically its stereotypical weakness is not really there apparently. But I think it's a little bit harder to play, and again, if you're pugging your groups towards the end of the season, it might be a bit rough, which is why I didn't put it into the number 1 position. But if you've got a team nailed down, like this is like the best composition that you could really use. Coming into the number 2 position, which is a little bit easier to slap people around with, it is going to be the Retribution Paladin. Now, this specialization is the most represented at high rating of any specialization in the game. I've seen a lot of people picking up this specialization for the first time and skyrocketing their rating. It is just a smash and grab. Just run in there, do as much damage as possible, run people over, stun the healer on cooldown. I would recommend playing with an Arms Warrior and a Mistweaver Monk, particularly a Fistweaver. This seems to be one of the most common compositions to easily climb the ladder. So Fistweaver, Arms Warrior, Retribution Paladin. You do have some flexibility. I've seen Marksmanship Hunters start getting picked up, and I think Restoration Shaman could be a decent substitute for a Fistweaver given the buffs that have come in for it right now. But this is one of the best. Just get in there, do a lot of damage, and run people over types of compositions. It's been a staple for easy rating for a long time right now, but maybe even more so now, especially with a Fistweaver Monk. Definitely highly recommend it if you're looking to get in there and get some work done. If you're an Arms Warrior, Fistweaver, you definitely want to be coupled up with a Ret Paladin or vice versa. Those are going to be some of the best compositions available. And I've been describing some of the most powerful and easy to play compositions to succeed on. What could possibly be in the number 1 position? Well, if you haven't guessed it at this point, let me show you. It is going to be the Augmentation Evoker, particularly paired with either an Unholy or Frost Death Knight. So if you're Frost Death Knight, you feel like a misfit and not able to find any teams, you need to be getting yourself an Augmentation Evoker. Likely you're going to want a Fistweaver Monk, but I could see Preservation Evoker, both those healers doing tons of damage, which is going to be very important for this type of composition. The goal of the composition is to grip targets together. The Augmentation Evoker flies through and stuns everything, and everybody just adds damage and runs them over. You are incredibly tanky. I would say more tanky than that of even Ret Warrior. For that reason, I think that it's a bit easier to play, especially for a beginner, or if you're just in LFG. But again, compositions might be a little bit more limited, but you can substitute that Death Knight out for other melee DPS. You can play with a Warrior, Demon Hunter, Feral Druid, really any high DPS melee DPS with a Fistweaver or Preservation Healer and an Augmentation Evoker is going to be a great comp. So if you can't find a Death Knight, that would be ideal, especially if you're looking to take it as seriously as possible. But if you can't, there are other options for you to be able to kind of sift through an LFG and find somebody if you can't find a Death Knight particularly, but I would recommend the Death Knight. And those are my top 7 at the moment from what I've seen from personal experience, taking observations of the ladder, from playing on the ladder myself. Just wanted to relay this information to you because I've been getting this question a lot in my stream, which is linked in the description down below if you'd ever like to tune in to me live. I'm pretty much streaming every day, doing 2400 solo shuffle challenges, going to be doing some rank 1 pushes as well here pretty soon. But I hope this list has helped you sort of figure out which specializations are succeeding, how you can fit your own class or spec into the meta to be able to start hammering down some of these rewards, because we're getting down to the last minute here. But other than that, thank you very much for watching the video, and I will see you in the next one.